The expression that the voice of things other than myself, Renaissance with Eiseley's philosophy that man could contain more than himself. Eiseley cultivates his sensation beyond the purely visual, so he can express the voice of many things. In the attention he pays to other species, a man could contain different forms of beings. Maybe he imagines a new form of humanity, a modern man who tastes out his becoming animal. In seeking kinship with animals, in thinking to contain them in his imagination, the white may be thinking his place in a pack. Now we have French philosophers who explain sort of the same perception as Eiseley. Toulouse and Guattari says, a becoming animal always involves a pack, a band, a population, a peopling, in short, a multiplicity, and every animal is fundamentally a band and pack. It is at this point that human beings encounter the animal. We do not become animal without a fascination for a pack, for multiplicity, because we seem to be interested in the multiplicity dwelling within us. In another animal poem of Eiseley, The Changelings, Eiseley very clearly claims that I'm born of this, the fox, the wolves, the coyotes. In other words, he claims to belong to a group and insists that the possibility for one individual man to become many other humans. The idea that the multiplicity within man is a key here. In becoming animal, the individual crosses the boundary between humans and non-humans. Eiseley enters the world of becoming animal through his sympathy with other animals. So we'll see how Eiseley in his writing shows the empathy for other forms of life. Empathy for other creatures is an emotion that recurs throughout Eiseley's work, infusing his poetry in particular, because in his poem, he expressed his love for other forms of life, especially animals, very strongly. Let's see. In his poem, let's see, one for The Horse in the College Hall, Eiseley expressed his feelings of sadness and loss when he witnessed the replacement of an old horse by a modern machine. The horse lived in a small space once in the walls, diagonally beneath his cell, and its job is to drag an antique lawnmower over the grass. Seeing the familiar creature become obsolete leads him to reflect on the threat of himself being replaced by machines in the library that compute and eject and order the videography. It took him months to compile. Despite Eiseley's somehow conservative point of view on machines like computer, his fear that in modern world none will be replaceable comes from a sense of value that everything that is living, a world without life will be the worst nightmare for Eiseley. He says, in the end, there will be nothing living to smell the spring grass. Nothing, you understand. We will have replaced ourselves. Eiseley's analogy between himself and as an older scholar and the older horse in the old horse is thus both comic and serious. Both seem to live in a prison, a small stable in the vault for the horse and a cell for a man, and both feel lonely for years on end, and others, both are replaceable by machines. The speaker holds a different view, however, from those who prefer machines, since they see the horse only from a utilitarian point of view. He calls for compassion, as he calls for the compassion. from man towards animal. He says in this the same point, I think it's our objective not to be cruel, and argues that there are things that machines cannot do, but man can. Man have the capacity to feel and to remember. So what he remember about the horse? They smoothed out the grass and filled in the earth. I remember over his little walkway. Only I can recall where it was. No one, I suspect, will do this for man. Certainly not the machines. Our kindness will have been to ourselves. I know now what is often called total. Kindness is something that gives men their humanity. Humans mourn their own kind when they are gone. The machines that replace the horse cannot remember the endearing activity of the animal, nor can they show sympathy for other animals, including humans. I think the last few lines show that only if we are not cruel to other animals, we will be kind to our own species. The word total includes human and other animals. The poem is kind of monument to the departed horse and also a meditation on the necessity for sympathy for all living things. Eiseley, the speaker, worries that in the future, in the end, there will be nothing living to smell, nothing living to smell the spring grass, as the horse did, and maybe no one to record this activity of smelling grass as the old scholar does in noting this thing from his office window and adding this to his memory of his life. If he keeps it in the mind, then the thing will be never gone, right? Eiseley attributes this marvel of the way human minds can preserve or holding things or stands that go to the unexpectedness of nature and the universe. Eiseley shows his appreciation of animal diversity in his writing when he described how people see or just ignore the animals whose passes they across. He tells a story in which a young lady charges her professor with anthropomorphism when he mentions a tiny deer mouse, a wonderful new and radiant little creature of white feet, and an investigative clever whom I have seen come into the basement seminar upon the visiting's emperor. In contrast to the young woman's skepticism, the professor wants to say the mouse apparent interest in the seminar as a sign of future evolutionary transformation. He asks, who is to say what may happen when a mouse has a state for the achievement rather than beyond that of average students? It takes time, generation even, for this kind of event to mature. Eiseley's speak has more confidence in the mouse interested and in the lecture on time and begun history than in that of human students. Fancifully, the professor describes the instance as something like Eiseley in reverse. Rather than a child falling a rabbit down in a rabbit hole in a magical world, the mouse follows the lead of human into a future. He says it takes generation for this kind of events to mature, suggesting that in generation or millennia, it may be the mouse or other than human life form, instead of human beings that survive the test of time and nature. Eiseley's narrator expressed his disappointment that his concept about time is misunderstood by the young woman who, although represents the new generation, is evidently part of the conspiracy to keep things just as they are. This is what biologically we may call the living screen, the net that keeps things firmly in place, a place called norm. He reveals the narrow view of the 20th century's youngs about the possibility of interaction between humans and animals. The young woman concentrates only on human present and believes the spacious place in nature are fixed. She fails to understand Eiseley's perception on life's diversity and spacious evolution. In his notebook, Eiseley records his apprehension about the danger of misunderstanding time. He says, a society whose youngs believes only in now is deceiving itself. A now that is truly now has no future. It denies man's basic and oldest characteristics, that he's a creation of memory, a bridge into future, a time rider. Without recognition of continuity, love and understanding between generations is impossible. A true now standing all by itself is a face of death. Eiseley feels people has difficulty conceive of a span of time beyond the immediate present. He urges his reader, especially the youngster one, to keep the future in the eyes in order to live the present well, because man carries his history and the past exists as a bridge to the future. He warns us if man only pays attention to a present moment, he's facing a dead end. Through his subjective experiences, Eiseley leads reader to realize that science cannot eliminate all the mystery, and it would be better for man to try to recover some wonder and curiosity for the natural world. And he tries to make people be aware that humans are just part of life, part of nature as other life forms. Still, he insists on the uniqueness of humans and confronts them with their responsibility for their behavior in nature. He insists what is important in defining man's humanity is the sympathy he can have with other life forms. He anticipates the current discussion on ecological and multidisciplinary animal study, notably represented by Donna Howard. Eiseley hopes as a man can be awakened by his perception and learns to respect animals, mindful of both their animal past and the present bonds among species. Eiseley urges us to think outside the rigid categories that we have put in place in order to define ourselves and others, thereby opening up new possibility for existence. Thus, he suggests that there's a mutual need for companionship between humans and other animals, and we can all live together, white or tan, humans and other animals. Well, that's all my presentation. Sorry for the pronunciation. I wonder whether you agree with my ideas that Eiseley anticipates the modern conception about ecology, ecocriticism, and I'm eager to know how do you think of Eiseley's animal points, and are there other interesting points that you find in link with the ecology? So I'm excited to discuss this. Do you have any questions on the ideas or on the points? I hope my presentation is clear.